Being a housewife would not suffice modern men. Here's why. Listening to Will Smith in his audiobook, he left his wife because she was a housewife who had no ambitions outside the home. She was very creative and artistic and was great at taking care of the family, but there was nothing more to her. And the pattern is that was also the same experience that Will Smith had with his first lover, who he moved in, of the woman who was his high school sweetheart, who he was about to marry. What you find is the commonality of a lot of highly successful performing men, and they're not even talking about Will Smith level, but the Will Smiths of their industry, or even just men who are like the high performers in the high percentile of their industry, especially when it comes to earning and accomplishments. A housewife is great, right? But these men need more of a dynamic woman, especially modern men, because modern men aren't groomed as the men before them, generations before them. Whereas the modern men now have domesticated skills and knowledge and more emotional involvement in the relationships. Relationships to modern men isn't just a chore or responsibility as it was of men in the past. Marriage was a responsibility. It was a right of privilege. It was your contribution to your community. Modern times, these specific groups of men I'm referring to, and I'll just say this with Will Smith. I say this because I have a lot of married, fluent, were married, a lot of fluent males, bros who divorced their wives, who were housewives. What you find in this commonality is that their wives just weren't enough for them when you start listening to their stories. Their wives were great housewives, great at maintaining the family, but they weren't ambitious, they weren't driven. And it's not that they wanted these women to financially contribute to the household. No. Same with Will. He wasn't looking for Jada to contribute to the household. It's that when women have an ambition to go out in the world and build out their dreams, not saying they have to become number one or the best at what they do, but in lieu of doing that, you develop a lot of characteristic traits that are very attractive, because you become more involved in the social matters of the world. You have deeper perspectives about practicality of how society actually functions versus ideas, if you didn't have that experience, how to navigate through corporate ranks and network meetings, and all that brings home to that woman to have a deeper sense of finding herself among the chaos and a better understanding of the structure that creates chaos in society. So that creates a more interesting woman to engage with, because she actually has ideas about a realm of things such as policy, finances, investing, history, social behavior, societal behaviors, etc. And these are things that are engaging for the modern man who isn't looking to build a family because he feels it's his birthright to contribute to the community. No, he's looking to build a family because he wants to find a woman that he's best compatible with, who's a interesting partner, who's an attractive partner. And so that's the thing I want to harbor on, is that when you black guys are choosing your wives, most importantly, first off, always, make a choice from a stable place, stable emotional place, stable financial place. 2, when you're choosing a woman, make sure it's a woman that is engaging for you. She has something about her. Not saying that y'all agree on everything, because if you read the book, Will and Jada, they didn't agree. Like, Will is flashy, Jada wasn't flashy. Jada was jazzy in her own way and sexy, and and Will had his own world. He was, a megastar at this time, or a rising megastar at this time, because he got with her right after 6 Degrees of Separation, and the Fresh Prince had already been a #1 sitcom for years. And yeah, but he, in the book, he talks about just the bond they had and just deep conversations even to this day. And he even talks about one moment during the book where he called Jada, and this is right when his wife gave him the divorce the divorce papers. Now, even though his wife divorced him, and this is another misnomer, people think that just because wives are the ones who file for divorce the most, doesn't mean that those men didn't sabotage those marriages. Because, see, men have a funny way of ending things. Most men rather not strike the hammer, but tip it over. All right. And so Will said some very mean things to his wife, and that eventually led to the debacle of his first marriage. But it's all according to his book, of course, and his side. But as soon as they divorced, he called Smokey Robinson, got some advice, and that's something. When I do my full review of Will, I'm gonna cover that part. But it was interesting and funny because Smokey said some shit about divorce and divorcing history-wise. But anyway, Will called his wife and was like, not called his wife, called Jada, and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she was like, "Nothing." And at this time, Jada had quit Hollywood. That's another thing most people don't. Again, I'm gonna put all this in my review, but Jada quit Hollywood like in 95, 96. She was done with the whole Hollywood thing. It wasn't her. She was tired of having to deal with all the be fake and buddying up to people just to get roles, and she was often looked over because she was short for a lot of roles. But anyway, she actually started a farm. She bought a farm in Baltimore and moved back home. We was about to start cultivating farmland out there. Will called her and said, "Hey, you my girl now." She said, "Okay," and hung up the phone. He hung up the phone, and that was their history of how their romance started. Now, they did go on a date while he was married, which I'll cover this in my review because it's interesting. I'm at that part now of how at the start of their relationship. But anyway, I say all this to say, because I run into this so often among a lot of ex-married men and even married men going through it with their wives. Most men make the mistake of marrying the woman, the first wife, based off of she held me down like an obligation. She held me down when I didn't have nothing or have much. And these men did the work with their wives, and they built themselves up with the help of their wives, of course, holding things down at home. And boom, they're not this plateau where like they want more out of a woman. They're not into the same woman that they first married. So that's the #1 mistake. The second mistake married men make when they get married the second time is then they go off of the outside beauty, most cases, and that's where they also fail. But that's another conversation. So I say all this to say, Black Gods, that find a woman that's interested, that's interdependent, where she's not codependent on you like a housewife. Find a woman that's kind of an even middle, good, as much as close of a balance as that you can find, especially if she's strong in areas that you aren't. And contrast is so important in attraction. You have to have ideologies or beliefs in life or behaviors that are contradicting of each other, because it draws the attraction in. One might be goofy, one might be more stern, one might be more creative, one might be more looking for the word, more just less creative, organized, I should say. So that's what I got for y'all, Black Gods, man. Build a family with the right woman so you don't have to keep doing it with different women. All right. A black woman, a black wife is your way. And if you don't marry a black wife, that's cool too. As long as you get married to the right woman, that's all I really, really care about. I would love if it's a black woman. I really care about you marrying the right woman, because that is the key to wealth. wealth, not just for yourself, but for your kids. Which is another conversation we're going to have about how marriage affects, how the relationships status of the parents affects the performance and productivity of the offspring. All right, fearless black man, fear coach D'Amico's here.